Hello, 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 everybody. Photo finished there, but we did get it started on time. Hope you're having a fantastic morning this Tuesday. What's the date? July 14th. Thank you to everybody who has made it here right at the jump as we slowly are watching people trickle in across all of the different applications here. Thanks for being here, Jay, Aaron, Gamer, Jarmani, Larry, so many other people, Blue Canary that I'm sure I've missed. And hello to all of you in YouTube and Facebook world that it doesn't tell me. Hello, AP Endeavors doesn't tell me when you who you are or when you chime in. I just know how many people are watching. So I know there's plenty other people out there who are just silent observers, and that's absolutely fine. Um, Canary, you're not starting that conversation again. I'm putting my foot down on that right now. Trying to start the fireworks controversy again. Um, Big show today. We've got a guest. We've got somebody running in the 56th district for state assembly, Shauna Riley. I actually met her over the weekend. Hello, Ishvari. We had a great conversation. I met her and her campaign manager. Shot her a text yesterday afternoon. She's going to be on the show at 9:30 today. We unfortunately have ice doing ice things in Maine this time, with not as much information as we're used to having, but I'm willing to go out on a limb and know and assume I know how things played out there. And where we're starting today, hello, Blue Dragonfly. You seem new here. Welcome to the party. Or if you've been here before and I just haven't noticed, I apologize. But welcome to the party. Um, I see Shauna saying that she's here. That's strange because we're scheduled for 9:30 and I don't see her in the room. That's all right. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Oh, Blue Dragonfly, are you Shauna? I sent you an email to your email that was provided to me in the group chat, but we'll get that rolling at 9:30. Um, if that is in fact you, just go check your emails. You should have the link for the show there. Takes like 2 minutes to set up. You don't have to rush to get it done. We'll get that rolling at 9:30 here. Where I do want to start this conversation though, um in the world of politics, and if you've seen my content um this morning slash some of the things that I'd been saying last night during Ben After Dark, which of course is available on my YouTube page. Um Thank you, Guido fan. Good to see you too. Ben Kenobi, I can get behind that. Um The story of the day in Wisconsin surrounds Sarah Rodriguez. Now, for a lot of the moderates, in their mind, she was the front runner. She was the safe choice, right? For those of you that were scared by Medicare for all, taxing the rich, and a more inclusive way of living, centrism was offering that warm, cushy status quo that kept everybody feeling safe. I'm being a bit hyperbolic, but nevertheless, I am being honest when I say it. Um, oh, wonderful, Blue Dragonfly. Well, I'm glad you're figuring it out, and I'm sure you're going to be a great addition to this community here. So, thanks for hanging out with us, and thanks for listening since the beginning. Sarah Rodriguez was embroiled in and I'm going to be putting this in quotes. What's up, Violet? Throughout the entire show today. Sarah Rodriguez was involved in a scandal that a lot of people are claiming is going to require her to drop out of the race. And I'm here to tell you right now that nothing could be further from the truth. Um, and if you couldn't tell by my descriptor of her politics, this is not coming from some kind of diehard Sarah Rodriguez fan. I've made it pretty clear where my leanings are. However, I am hoping to get Rodriguez and Barnes on the program before August 11th. And for the record, she has already announced that she has no intention of dropping out of this race. Now, the scandal in question surrounds her campaign manager essentially misrepresenting the amount of money that they had in the account. Now, we don't know where that money went, if it ever existed. Was it skimmed? Was it embezzled? We have no idea. I most certainly am not going to jump to any conclusions here, although I do have a feeling I know the answer. But I want to point at a larger issue. And I'm actually going to poke fun. So on my TikTok / Discord channels, I have a group of people who we've all actually ended up becoming friends that all started off as viewers of the show when I was working at a shitty little radio station in Northeast Wisconsin. And we've all gotten to know each other very well, and they have been incredibly helpful keeping me on the path and staying focused on what I need to do in order to get the home studio up and running, to get the to grow the audience, to get better at content, to do all these things. And these people have been an incredibly helpful group of people that I appreciate that they are in my life now. There are times, and they know this, that especially shortly after being fired for no reason other than being too good at the job, um, that I had too much on my plate, and they could recognize that. And they'd say, Ben, you have to do this, you have to do this. And so rather than piling a bunch of stuff on my plate, they delegated. They were like, you take care of this, you take care of this. And I have been operating as though everybody is just doing what they are supposed to be doing. Not supposed to be, what they have offered to do. They're like, I'm going to do this. I just assume that it goes that way. When you're a one person operation, or when you're running for office, when you're running a business, when you're literally doing anything and you have to trust a team of people, there's a certain level of trust that goes into that. Sarah Rodriguez's campaign manager seems to have abused that trust in a way that she knew that nobody was watching what she was doing, and banked on that trust, knowing that Sarah, according to her accounting of the matter, did not check the books, ultimately resulting in the Sarah Rodriguez campaign having about 200 grand in the lead up to the primary, which is August 11th. We're less than a month away from said primary. That's a pretty shitty situation to be in if you are running for office, specifically governor in this state, in a contested primary. That's a short number. That's a small number of money in a short amount of days. Now, the reason Rodriguez noticed that there was something off with the finance funds was as a result of the lack of commercials that she was seeing on TV. They were in the middle of ad buys. They were in the middle of all of these different efforts to get Sarah's name out there as the campaign was building momentum in the build up to August. And she realized that the commercials that she had allegedly been paying for were not playing. That's what ultimately resulted in the books being checked out. Realized that the campaign manager, for one reason or another, was misrepresenting the amount of money in the account. Waka waka, she gets fired later on that day. As soon as Rodriguez found out there was a scandal, they get fired. Now, as I've stated, I am a Francesca Hong lefty. Barring unforeseen circumstances, that's the way that I'm going to vote. However, whether it's Kelda or Barnes or Rodriguez, I'd have to learn more about Brennan before I confirmed that I would vote for him. Um, Regardless of who comes out of this, they would get my vote over Tom Tiffany, because I know what he represents, I know what his platform is, and I know that we are not going to see any kind of material improvement under a Tom Tiffany governorship. What's interesting about this, though, and I hope that my resume points out that I am not providing cover, I'm not doing damage control, I am genuinely reacting the way that I feel about this. In 2026, this isn't a scandal. In 2026, Donald Trump has 3 events like this before lunchtime. Right now, there's a story that I have no intention of talking about on this show ever about Donald Trump essentially playing both sides of the legal system in order to sue the IRS to get money and also make sure that his taxes never get audited again, and the way that the judge reacted to that. That story, in and of itself, which I cannot stress enough, I have no intention of actually covering in any meaningful way. That story, in and of itself, is infinitely worse than anything that Sarah Rodriguez is accused of right now. Do you see MAGA going to Tom Tiffany and saying, you need to disavow what Donald Trump is doing right now? Otherwise, I don't know how people are going to take your campaign seriously. Is that even crossing the minds of the people in MAGA right now? There is a scandal with the sitting president taking on the IRS to enrich himself and his family members directly. This is after a fake tennis shoe scandal and a fake cell phone scandal and an ICE agency that is unaliving people in the streets. Like, pick an hour and I will point you to a scandal. And do you see anybody in MAGA being like, oh my God, if Tom Tiffany doesn't disavow what Donald Trump is doing right now, I don't know how he thinks he has a viable path to the governorship. Is anybody realizing that? No. So now let's bring it back to Rodriguez, shall we? I believe the people calling for her to step down, which are all of her competitors, both within the Democratic primary as well as Tom Tiffany, which, much like the Graham Plattner situation, Tom Tiffany can just shut the fuck up. Nobody cares about what a MAGA thinks about a conspiracy or about a scandal in politics in 2026. Not a single person cares what you think about it. Maybe your cultists do. Not a single person paying attention cares at all what you have to say about it. And then you look at the Democrats. You see Kelda Royce calling it out. You see Mandela Barnes calling it out. You see Brennan saying, how can we trust her to be the governor if this situation happens? It's very opportunistic. And I get it. I get it. That's what politics is. I get that politics is the art of being opportunistic. It's the art of taking advantage of any perceived weakness within one of your challengers, especially a Rodriguez who, by and large, were she to step down, I think a large contingency of that vote would end up going to the Kelda Royce camp, which is probably why she's being so vocal about her dropping out. But the idea that this is somehow a crippling blow. I hate to break it to you, but assuming nothing changes dramatically in the world of tariffs and uh, war in Iran and cost of living and the masked virgins and all of these different factors that we need to consider surrounding the Trump administration, the idea that Tiny Tom would have the gall to go up in front of a microphone and be like, I heard that one of the people that Sarah Rodriguez hired sucked at her job. Kristi Noem siphoned $230 million out of DHS in order to film a commercial with her on a horse. Yeah, she got fired too. Is anybody questioning Donald Trump's ability to hire people? No, they are not. As you all know, I write for the Minocqua Brewing Company Substack. I have an article live there today, and there's a good chance you might be listening to me on the Substack right now. And if you're not, please consider A, subscribing to my Ben Cominos stuff, but then B, subscribing to Kirk's Minocqua Brewing stuff as well, because it helps both of us out and it supports independent media. But I have an article from last Tuesday where I wrote about the fact that Democrats need to stop playing defense with these scandals. I highlighted that if you're going to make Donald Trump's corruption the center of your campaign, then you sure as hell better not have any corruption in your campaign, because even though it's not right, the MAGAs will run it up the flagpole and immediately act as if that example of corruption is more egregious than the daily examples that come across Donald Trump every single day. I don't remember which talking head show I saw it on, but there was a guy. Oh, it was the Piers Morgan show, And Mehdi Hassan was the leftist talking about Lindsey Graham passing away. And then there was a right winger, no idea who he was. And Mehdi's take yesterday evening was the same as mine yesterday morning. You don't mock people for passing, but Lindsey Graham was a warmonger responsible for death, destruction, and violence all around the planet. And the fact that he died made the world a better place. And that's not insincere or inappropriate to say. It is an appropriate accounting. As a member of the media, it's my job to look at people through that lens. And that is an appropriate interpretation of what his life and legacy would look like. And the MAGA who was on there, was immediately ready to jump down Mehdi's throat. And um, Piers Morgan said to him, "Well, how about Donald Trump saying Robert Mueller, he's glad he's dead, or spreading conspiracies about Rob Reiner?" And he went and defended Donald Trump doing that while getting ready to completely annihilate Mehdi Hassan for calling out Lindsey Graham's accurate legacy that he was leaving behind after his passing. That's how they operate, all right? So if you're going to make corruption, Donald Trump's corruption, the focal point of your campaign, shut the hell up about the corruption, which is why my main takeaway is Democrats should stop talking about Donald Trump's corruption, because inevitably you're going to have a Sarah Rodriguez moment. I don't think she should step down. I don't want her to come out of the primary. I think her policies are much more milquetoast centrist and weak than anything coming out of the leftist flank of the party, personally. But I don't think she should step down for this. The whole concept of politics is about the marketplace of ideas. You let people know, were you given the authority to oversee the state of Wisconsin, what would your policies look like? And yeah, it's hard to account for $100,000 disappearing, but you know what? Sometimes you let your guard down when you trust people. Sometimes the company tells you that you could have a 40-year career there and then fires you after 4 years, and you never saw that coming. You just get the rug pulled out from under you. Of course, that's a hypothetical situation. I'm not using anything personal or anything like that. What I don't understand is this. Why are Democrats, as I see old libs saying Dems are eating their own, why are Democrats pretending like this is some kind of egregious scandal that is incredibly damning outside of the candidates running? That's fine. But I am seeing journalists that I respect talk that way. I am seeing news organizations, like commercial news organizations, talk that way. Of course, Tom Tiffany and MAGA are, but again, who gives a shit what they have to say? Nobody, not a single person. Comment on your own corruption and then come and talk about the Democratic corruption. This is not corruption. This was a bit of naivete, maybe. This was a bit of misplaced trust. But the idea that this is somehow not an acceptable example of how a gubernatorial candidate should act, I'm just not buying that in 2026. I'm not buying that. What that says to me is that a lot of Democrats in the field view her as a threat, and they'd rather she just see herself out for some kind of nonsensical reason rather than taking her on at the ballot box. If I were running, I would have the confidence in my platform and not have to bank on these kind of random BS moments to help propel me to victory. Ethan says the only thing I take away from this is a normie might have a hard time thinking she'll be an effective operator with tax dollars, but honestly, meh, who cares? Person got canned and should be investigated. That's the appropriate way to do this. Old Lib says, I think it's improper filing of online forms, not fraud. A treasurer for campaign is an overwhelming responsibility. I agree. To me, like, it seems, and I hope you guys believe me when I say this, but like, I am not, if I were in one of the candidates' camps, I would be very upfront and vocal about that. The first day I were hired, I would come here and say, just so you know, I'm doing communications for this person, I'm doing public relations for this person, I'm still going to do the show, but this is how I'm gonna make some help impact the election in my own way. Be the first thing I told you guys. I think there's a lot of people in my position that do carry water for specific candidates. Don't get me wrong, right-wing radio doesn't even hide it. Apparently I was too polarizing, but right-wing radio doesn't even fucking hide it. They are just unabashedly pro mass virgin army. Um, but I think there is an element of the liberal flank that is also operating the same way because it doesn't make any sense. If you truly loved this candidate, like I'll be honest, as I've stated, Hong would be my preference. If Hong were embroiled in this kind of scandal and all of commercial media was calling for her to step down, this segment would be pissed as fuck. Like right now, I'm doing this from a level of like, okay, I could really take or leave this candidate, but this is a ridiculous way to uh to hope that somebody excuses themselves that you view as a viable threat to your potential candidacy. I'm calling balls and strikes right now. I'm calling it how I see it, and something does not add up. Something is not adding up with how quickly Democrats are calling for her to step down. And I genuinely believe, because let's be honest, I'm already noticing there's one account that I follow on Twitter that's just like a random guy that posts about Democratic Wisconsin politics. As soon as the announcement came out, he posts a giant picture of Mandela Barnes and says viable plan B because there is a contingency of people that are anyone but Hong. They can't explain why. I know why. They can't explain why, but they are anybody but Hong. You see other people funneling into the Calder Royce camp almost immediately, almost like the intention was as soon as this story broke to get behind it. And it doesn't pass the smell test because I know if their favorite candidate were embroiled in this scandal, they would be highlighting the fraud in the Trump administration. They would be highlighting the fraud in or the lack thereof in the Rodriguez campaign. It's not, I think, a very big jump in logic to get there. Brambo says the media is aligned with Tom Tiffany's interests, obviously. Well, like right wing, well, all talk radio is, yes. I thought I wasn't working at right wing radio. I was wrong, apparently. Um, but don't tell me the Journal Sentinel is aligned with Tom Tiffany. Don't tell me that the recombobulation area is aligned with Tom Tiffany. Don't tell me that WISN is aligned, TV, not radio, is aligned with Tom Tiffany. They're not. But you know who else they're not aligned with? Francesca Hong. So they're trying to consolidate the vote in their own way. But to me, I assumed that this inevitably was going to head to a three-way race between Rodriguez, Barnes, and Hong. And now, depending on what shakes out over the course of the next week, maybe less, it might end up being a three-way race between Barnes, Hong, and Royce, and that assumes that Royce is able to pick up large percentages of the vote. Um, Again, in the most recent polling, outside of the big three, 23% of people were funneled under I don't know or one of the other candidates. That was with Crowley still in the race, counting people that just haven't made up their mind yet. And of course, Brennan is still in the race as well. So it's not like Kelda's sitting there at 18% right now. She could, as I said when I interviewed her, I think I didn't know this was coming, but I did say that I expected her to get a little bit of a bump over the course of the next couple of days, specifically because of how she carried herself at the Wisconsin Muslim Alliance forum a week and a half ago. Guido fan says he's like the Optimus Prime. He looks for the good in everyone, but the Democrats and MAGA are all just lost causes. I would agree. All corporate media is right wing to a certain extent, or at the very least, what liberals represent. Because to me, liberalism is right wing, just center right. It's Reaganomics, it's deregulation, it's pro corporate interest. But also we should be nice to gay people, which we should. I don't want to sound like that doesn't matter, but like that's where liberal. And they're like, oh, liberals are getting a little too far to the left for me. You're telling on yourself there when you say that. Not anybody in the chat. The hypothetical you. Ben, they are afraid of Francesca Hong being labeled as a communist, John says. They do not give credit for socialism can do. Francesca and our state history are forgotten. I mean, they also labeled Kamala Harris as a communist. So as far as I'm concerned, um, actually be a leftist because the right is going to characterize you that way no matter what. So who cares? Oh, God. All right. I'm going to give it 2 more minutes. And if I don't see her pop up, I might have to teacup on TikTok for a moment because, of course, the text conversation, unless I have it here. Excuse me 1 second here, guys. Yeah, okay, there it is. Perfect. Bear with me 1 second. There we go. These are the moments when if I had a producer, it'd be a little more straightforward. But so I mean, hell, I actually screenshotted it. Hold on. Hold on. I actually can prove a bigger point here. Because John brings up a good point. They're going to try and paint her as socialist because that is the right to move. They painted Joe Biden as a socialist slash communist. They painted Kamala Harris as a communist. I want to show you guys something though. Because I think it goes a lot further than that. And I think, as John says, Wisconsin has forgotten its roots. You don't even have to go back to sewer socialism, John. Here is the race between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton um, back in 2016. And when you look at these metrics, if you can see them on there, uh, Bernie Sanders got 570,000 votes. Hillary Clinton got 433,000. That is a difference of almost 140,000 votes going to Bernie Sanders in the state of Wisconsin in 2016. The idea that somebody to the left can't win in Wisconsin is a laughable assertion. It is made up by centrists, by Blue MAGA to scare people out of voting for somebody. I did a video about it last week. Electability is a scam. It always has been and is created by anybody who are the protectors of the status quo. To me, it seems as though that narrative is starting to show a couple of fallacies. People are waking up to it. And I do think you might ultimately end up seeing that play out in August. We'll see what ends up happening. But I want it to be against the strongest field of candidates. And as I've said, I still have to look into Joel Brennan. I don't know a lot about him. I'll be honest. Not to be rude, I do want him to come on the show. I can't believe he's in the race. But all of that being said, hello, Shauna. I see you backstage. We'll get you on in a moment. But all of that being said, I'm a big believer that may the best ideas win. May the best man or woman win. And when you see the way the Democratic Party is so willing to create a circular firing squad to eliminate a challenger, who again is not my first pick. To me, it's I described it in the video I made this morning. It's one of the most liberal things I've ever seen in my life. Brian says, Ben, the amount of graft that Sarah was supposedly having committed is nothing. In fact, she would have had to try harder in this post-corruption political world we live in. Come on, man. That's kind of my attitude. We live in a world where 3 scandals bigger than this break every day by lunchtime. And if you expect me to take stuff like this seriously, I I'm broken in that regard. Maybe it's because I talk politics every day, but a lot of people in this state have made it very clear exactly what they will and will not tolerate in terms of corruption. And it turns out that that threshold is a lot larger than a lot of us would care to admit. Now, we can continue this conversation in the 10 o'clock hour if if anybody is up for that. But right now, we have a conversation that I'm going to bring you up now, Shauna. So be ready. Bang, add the stage. There we go. Hello, Shauna. How are
Hi.
you, Shauna is running for the 56th Assembly District here in Wisconsin, and we met in an event on Sunday for Rick Crossan, and we got to talking a little bit. And I said, you know what? I think you would really enjoy an audience on this program. So 2 days later, here we are for the 56th district. How are you today, Shauna?
Good. I'm doing good.
That's good. That's good. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. This is how I always start these. You're representing the 56th district. Where is that for the people listening that may not have the map memorized? And a little bit about yourself.
So I'm here in New London, and it goes up to like Bear Creek, over to Black Creek, um, Grand Chute, little bit of it. It's big area.
Yeah. And what convinced you to get into the race?
Honestly, well, I'll tell you the whole story because a lot of people don't know the whole story.
Hit me with
So
it.
Okay, so back in 2020, my daughter ended up having leukemia. And so things were horrible and trying to navigate through that and realizing healthcare and working and insurance and all this other stuff. But what was really weird is I did have this dream one, crazy, and whoever was talking to me in my dream was screaming at me, wash the feet, it's the cure. So I went to the chaplain of the hospital and I said, "Can you please explain this? Jesus washing the feet of the disciples." And he did. And he said to me, if people in power would come down and metaphorically wash the feet of the people, it could be the cure of the world. That day at the hospital, I decided then that I wanted to run for politics. And I thought, I want to be in a position to help the people. So she got better, thank God. And
Good.
yeah, and things haven't been easy. I took care of my husband for 2.5 years, my ex-husband with dementia for 2.5 years. And we were able to put him into a facility because I was no longer able to work all day and take care of him. So, and then things happened. It was so crazy. A good friend of mine, I've known since little on, she goes, "I want you to meet someone if you'd like to go to the Democratic um, oh my gosh, the Democratic, um,
Convention?
well, in Minocqua, just the little party thing." So I met her, but then I met this woman named Jen, and she was sat next to me, and both of us were like looking at each other, and she goes, "Do we know each other?" And I said, "Nope, we never met before." But she's like, "Would you like to run for state assembly district 56?" And I went, "Why would you know?" And then I thought to myself, wait a minute, the dream, I want to be a person for change. I asked for this. I literally put it out to the universe and I asked for this, and I thought, this is my chance. This is my opportunity to do this. And so here I am because I've been through it. I'm a forklift operator. I stack cheese. So I work every day. I literally physically work every day. So, and then if I have an opportunity to create laws and be in a position to help Wisconsin people that are struggling, like I had to, and I continue to do, then that's what I want to do.
Yeah, well, first of all, that's a heck of a story, and I'm glad health-wise things seem to at least be trending in the right direction. We've all been there with a sick family member in one direction or the other, so I'm glad things are going there. And a lot of people miss those signs when they're right in front of their face. So good on you for picking up on it there. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is it safe to assume then that I have to believe healthcare is probably towards the top of your priority list? And what exactly, how would you be working as an assemblywoman to try and make that more affordable and and save on costs for the average Wisconsinite?
Well, I've been talking to a lot of women that are single moms. And so I want to expand on Badger Care because I needed that at one time because um, my oldest daughter was 5 at the time and we both lost our jobs. I was working at one place and he was working at another here in New London, and both our companies closed down within weeks of each other. So I didn't know what I was going to do as far as healthcare. And so there was Badger Care, and I thank God for that too. But when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and you want to pick up a little bit of overtime, and all of a sudden now you're over the limit, which isn't all that much. So now it drops, and you're trying to find now healthcare and this and that. Just because you worked overtime one week doesn't mean it's going to be there the next. So I don't think we should have a tier system as far as like SNAP benefits and Badger Care. And, I think we should be able to work on that.
So, we're live on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok right now.
No pressure.
You're good. You're doing great. Through YouTube, Just a Wisco Girl is asking if you have any prior political experience to this. I think based on your story, it sounds like this was kind of like your awakening moment. So this is your first whack at things.
Yep.
Yes, okay, great. So, let's talk rural healthcare, because that obviously hits close to home with what you're dealing with here. Back when I was on the radio, we had regular conversations about rural hospitals closing, not having access to Medicaid funds, Medicare funds, despite the fact that people need these locations, resulting in what's referred to as hospital deserts, meaning it's more than an hour drive before you're going to be getting to a hospital. I'm moving here from Pittsburgh personally. The apartment that I lived in, I could walk to 3 hospitals, to give you an idea of the difference in how people are living right now. What can we do on the state level to kind of reverse those trends and try and address a problem that I've never given birth, but I have to believe it's the kind of thing that, like, you're like, well, this is happening and I need to get somewhere quickly. And there's plenty of other issues as well. So how do we address this?
That is a really good question. Well, clearly more funding. Is it crazy to think that maybe hospitals shouldn't be like privately owned anyway?
There we go. No,
they should be they're for profit, and it doesn't do anyone any good when they're just all about the money. We do.
It's a service. That's my line. It's a service, not a business.
Exactly. And especially when you're in labor, who knows how long you have?
Yeah.
My water broke, and I drove to Appleton to deliver, and that was a little hairy. I didn't know, so.
Yeah, as Stevie says on TikTok, a lot of hospitals don't even offer birthing services. I don't believe New London does. Nina, the money mostly goes to admin, not doctors or nurses. Exactly. I think that's kind of what Shauna's getting at there. And I mean, there's a lot beyond giving birth. I mean, hell, even we saw in the news with Lindsey Graham over the weekend, just random aortic distortion, and there we go. Yep. Closer hospital, who knows what the situation is. Right. On the education, which is big in this place, I'll be honest, I did not anticipate when I moved to Northeast Wisconsin how much of an expert I was going to become on public dollars going into, as a non-parent, public dollars going into public schools versus the voucher system versus all of these different metrics versus performance at these schools. There's so many factors to consider here. First and foremost, it says it right on your website, public tax dollars for public schools. So is it safe to assume that you would push back against any kind of voucher inclusion?
I have been. Yeah. Private schools, fine. If you want to send your child to a private school, by all means, you should be able to do that. But don't use my dollars to do that. And our public schools are so unfunded already. And my sister is a teacher. I know that she's used her own money to buy things that, the kids needed and stuff. So we definitely need to put more funding into that. And I know there's talk about AI and stuff like that, but the AI that we should be looking into is actual intelligence.
Nice. Ken's asking, would you go as far as Badger Care for all, regardless of income, if somebody wanted it?
Yeah. I think we should expand it because insurance is just outrageous. And that's another thing that shouldn't be a moneymaker. We should all have health care, and having a job and this and that shouldn't depend on that. Like when I lost my job, I didn't know what to do or whatever. And then you get the next job and it takes maybe 60 days to get your insurance after having your new job. So now you have that gap that you're trying to like hopefully nothing happens within that time frame. And honestly, it shouldn't be something that is a condition. It should just be something that, we should all have. Just and if it's going to be cheaper if we all get on it, you know what I mean? Just come
Oh,
on.
sure. And I mean, regular listeners of this show are probably going to get sick and tired of me talking about it. But since it's so fresh in my mind, I just became unemployed 3 weeks ago. And you lose your income, and they tell you if you want to keep your insurance that you have here, it's a measly $600 a month. And it's like, oh, and that doesn't, it's not like it's free on the other side of
Right.
$600 once you go. So, I mean, the way this
I
system's
get
set
it.
up is absolutely busted. But so
Yep.
back into the education field, then. You take a stance here that is becoming a bit more prevalent. We actually talked about this at Ben After Dark, which we do evenings at 7 p.m. yesterday, about the idea of college versus, like, even beyond a bachelor's degree versus technical skills and learning to work with your hands in the trades. And you would like to see a little bit of an expansion on that side of things there to address the people that maybe book learning isn't necessarily their focus in adulthood.
Right. Well, I obviously just went to work right after school. And I wish we would have had like classes that in high school. I know they do have some now, but I wish it would have been even more expanded, like hands-on learning, cheaper. And I'm all about tech schools too, because not everyone can afford college. Not everyone can go or has the desire to go. Maybe people just don't know what they want to do with their future. And, so hopefully we could navigate through that or whatever. So,
Interesting stuff there. Last question about education. Ali on TikTok is saying, how will you put more money into schools if it's typically based on property taxes? Do you have some insight into that?
well, I would like to legalize marijuana. I
Nice.
think
Okay.
that
I'm
would
back on board.
that would generate some revenue, I think. and,
Yeah.
and we do have a few billionaires here in Wisconsin, and honestly, I don't understand why we got away from this. Every dollar I earn is taxed,
Oh, sure.
and I don't understand why every dollar they earn isn't taxed the same way mine are. And yeah, I just don't understand that. So
That's a fair concern, and I have to call because TikTok is a bit censorious with words you use, so I'm just going to call it jazz cabbage instead of the actual word. But I brought this up when speaking with the 7th Congressional Dems that Republicans are very quick to say there's no money for school funding, to say there's no money to increase pay, but then you say, oh, okay, well, then let's legalize jazz cabbage and put that money. Well, like, well, no, we're not doing that. And it's like, well, pick a cup. Either we're going to
right,
put money into this, or we'll generate more money through these means. And it seems like they don't want to do anything new, but they also don't
right,
want to improve anything. Is kind of the approach there.
yeah,
Um, but so switching gears again into the world of, and this is what I like about doing politics in Wisconsin because agriculture support, not to say in PA that there isn't an agriculture concern. The middle of our state absolutely does, but it pales in comparison to what Wisconsin is doing here. And we're getting absolutely wrecked by tariffs. That's not to say during the Biden years, as I often highlight, in 2023 and in 2024, farming bankruptcies were going up. Then in 2025, under Trump, they skyrocketed. So it went from a bad situation to, oh my God, this is a nuclear level event at this point. What can we do to right the ship on the state level? Because we can't do anything about the Trump tariffs on the state level. So what do we do to address farmers in the state that would be in your control?
Um, well, first, our school lunch program isn't the best, I'm sure, and I was thinking about like how local farmers could maybe help our schools to feed our schools. If that's there's so much we could probably do. Um, I don't have all the answers. There's a lot to think about. I'm
Sure.
sorry.
No,
Um,
you're fine. You're fine.
I'm hoping that when I get in, that my coworkers and I could figure a lot more out than Hopefully, we can all work together to figure things out and get Wisconsin a lot better.
Sure.
Try to
Uh,
compare what
Ste
he's doing.
Stevie is saying hello from Muckwa, and he's asking if you're aware of the Wapaka County wanting to raise buildings affected by the floods. Have you come across that? I'm unfamiliar with that story personally.
Yeah. So I do own two houses. I got a really good deal on one. I couldn't pass it up. So one was affected by the flood in here in New London. And so I was wondering about that. So I was talking to my neighbors and stuff. And you're right. I heard it was like if you like 50% of the value of your home or whatever, and then they want you to jack up your house out of the flood level.
Sure.
Honestly, I might not go with FEMA only because I can't afford that. So I guess I'm going to take my chances and get a new furnace and stuff all on my own because I know that's expensive. Would I like to jack it up? Great, but I don't have that income, and it's not feasible for me. So
Sure.
does that help?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, I'm kind of out of my wheelhouse on that one. Although I too am selling my building back in Pittsburgh for not flood-related reasons, but for a similar idea there. Act 10, obvious focal point of everybody in politics right now. Thoughts on the pros and cons of what Act 10 is?
Um, I think everyone should have a right to bargain and negotiate their contracts and everything else. Like I said, my sister's a teacher, and I'm for unions. So all these corporations are doing this. Like I worked for a company that took everything away that they possibly could, and so if there's a way to fight back and make a working environment better and more profitable for you, then I am absolutely for that.
Yeah, again, I only moved out here in 2022, but it seems pretty cut and dry that things have gotten a lot worse for all public employees post the enactment of Act 10, and it really feels like we're not seeing a whole hell of a lot of the benefits. So, not to say that I'd be in favor of it if things were cheaper for the rest of us, but it's not like that happened either. So I just think that's worth highlighting there. We're just about out of time here, Shauna, but your website, as I look at it here, also talks about strengthening worker compensation laws, which I find interesting. And like, again, I was fortunate enough to land on my feet shortly after being let go, so I didn't have to get into the unemployment world. I didn't have to get into the workers' comp world. A lot of people aren't necessarily that lucky. And what would you do to try and help make that transition a bit easier for people that find themselves unemployed for one reason or another?
I kind of well, for 18 years, I worked at a company and I was let go unexpectedly. Those people were not only my coworkers, but they became friends and almost like family. We were tight knit. And one day the company just said, "You're gone." I mean, I was a number to these people after 18 years. They did not care, They said corporate, whatever. So honestly, I just left and went on vacation because I didn't know what to do. But
There we go.
yes, we need to do so much better. When people, like even when people lose jobs and stuff, and they have that gap and everything else, and we need so we need to be able to like get insurance and this and that for people. And like when my daughter became sick, we only have FMLA for what, 12 weeks. 12 weeks in a 2.5 year old or 2.5 long, you know, plan. 12 weeks goes by so quick because when you don't know if you're going to have time to spend with your daughter and if she's going to, survive. So now you're driving from New London to Appleton to work and then to Green Bay every night to spend time with her. And then leaving late at night just to, that's hard. People in Wisconsin everywhere shouldn't have to worry about whether you're going to have a job. And after that 13th week, you're going to lose your job just to, you still need it. Insurance, bills still need to be paid and everything else. So I don't know. I think we just need to do better for the people. We shouldn't have to be struggling just to simply survive.
It's I think that's a fair assessment of matters. We're speaking with Shauna Riley. She's running in the 56th State Assembly District. The way I end every single one of these interviews is obviously we've been talking for a little over 20 minutes at this point. It's impossible to ask every question about every topic. So what's the thing you wish that I had brought up and talked about that you would like to jump into here and let all of the listeners across these platforms know about yourself as we get closer to primary season and eventually the general election?
Actually, I think we covered a lot of topics. Um, Basically, I think just my life has kind of prepared me, for everything that's coming up. I don't have all the answers. And if we did, I think, things would be better. But I do have common sense. And kindness is a big thing too. Just common sense and human decency. I've been through the struggle. Life hasn't been easy for me. So when things come up, and people are struggling, I sympathize. I feel that. Um, Life is hard all on its own. So we don't need billionaires, corporations, and our own government working against us every step of the way. Um, that's it.
Shauna Riley, thank you very much for joining us on Outside the Box today. You did great. I appreciate you being here. And tell Georgia I look forward to meeting her someday. And
I
thanks
know.
for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Bye.
Bye.
All right, wonderful stuff. You know what that reminds me of? During the 2016 presidential primary on the Republican side, um, she or on the Republican side, people would say, "Ben, you're blah blah blah, you're a Bernie bro." That was when I fully embraced Bernieism, and they would say to me, "Is there somebody on the Republican side that you could see yourself voting for?" And I said, "John Kasich from Ohio." And people said, "Why him?" I said, "He's the only person who, when he gets asked a question, actually has to stop and think." I said, "Everybody else is being political about it. They're being a politician. They have their canned responses, whether or not they actually believe them or not is another conversation entirely. But John Kasich would stand there and wait and think about the answer as if it were the first time he had ever been asked it. And a lot of people said they viewed that as a negative. And I said, no, that actually makes that person stick out to me in ways that most other politicians absolutely do not. And if you remember, that was a very crowded field back in 2016 when Trump ended up coming out on top of it there. But that was my attitude then. And I kind of found myself reflecting on that while I was speaking with Shauna there. So interesting conversation for sure. Yeah, I see what Allie, what you're saying there. I feel that, sometimes that's going to happen. What are you going to do? Nothing. Let's see what comments we have here on the YouTube. When inexperienced citizens step up and run for office, I hear their passion and I hear their problems, but I don't hear solutions. I like it when I'm wrong. I dig that. Old Lib says, oh, okay, yeah, we're fighting about Act 10 there. We can unpack that at another time. Uh, Vegan Girl says, I like her. She was compassionate and believes she would work for the people. A lot of people big on John Kasich. Um, the other side said, just here to help the algorithm. You're doing great. You're doing a great job. Thank you for being here. And Phil says, left up. Okay, no, I'm still on Act 10. Definitely have to remember that name, says Kevin. Yeah, it was interesting, and I was fortunate to kind of bump into her there at the Rick Crossan thing on Sunday. Otherwise, I don't know that I would have had her on the program, but I'm glad I did. Definitely offers a different and unique insight. And I mean, I actually was just talking about this with a woman running for the Libertarian Party, Elizabeth Fitzgibbon, actually. She was on the show back when it was still on the radio. We went out and grabbed coffee last week. We were talking about our own versions of personal strife that we went through in life and what that ultimately does to you as a person on the other side of it. Um, to be frank, when you're 23 years old and the biggest problem you face is, you didn't make the cut for the varsity team that you played, or you didn't get the lead in the musical or whatever the hell, that sucks in the moment, but there's much worse things that can happen when you have that moment, when you have a child who's sick, when you have a sick parent, when you survive abuse of some kind, whatever the situation may be. It sometimes presents you with a mindset that I think is very difficult to learn without experience. And that's what stuck out to me in that interview is God knows I can't. Dealing with sick parents, one thing, to me, a sick child, because like as morbid as it is, you're supposed to outlive your parents. Dealing with a sick child's another conversation entirely that I can't even begin to grapple with. So um not to say that that makes up for political experience or that you don't have to have ideas and policy suggestions that would improve things, but there is an element of that that I think is worth acknowledging. But also, Lindsey Graham lost both of his parents in 15 months and had to raise his kid sister on his own, and he grew up to be a shithead. So, like, what do I know? Um, but that's at least my perspective there. So Shauna Riley, 56th district. This will obviously be available on YouTube and Substack in terms of being archived. So if you don't get a chance, or if you'd like to share this episode with people that you know live in the New London 56th district area, that's absolutely welcome as well. Jarmani saying to anyone who has the ability to help, they need help hitting doors for Shauna's campaign. There's very few people in the 56th district that have the time or want to get involved, which tracks. Um, so there's the call to action right there. Thank you, Jarmani. Aaron, get a map. So in any event, Aaron, the interns in the chat over there. Asking where New London is, and I am terrible geographically. Like I just describe landmarks and things like that. That's how people from my city do things. Not only do we use landmarks to tell people how to get places, but like I'll be like, "Oh, you turn left where the Eaton Park used to be 5 years ago," and like everybody just knows where the Eaton Park used to be, and like that's where you turn left. Like I don't know the road that it was on, but in any event, so jam-packed first hour there. We have a whole second hour. What's Asveria saying here? Why should politics still exist if it's going to turn into Autobots versus Decepticons type of situation? Well, I mean, I think it's going to take the greater population waking up to the fact, like, I'll describe it to you this way because you're newer to the show, so you probably haven't heard this description. Had I gotten my radio show in 2017, I would have been one of the biggest blue MAGA shows on the planet. Um, I would have been sitting there saying, how does anybody vote Republican? They're obviously the bad guys, and Democrats are obviously the good guys. And I genuinely believed that. I genuinely thought that way. It took Joe Biden winning, getting a trifecta, and not really enacting any kind of positive change that he ran on, and always having an excuse. And then I would do my own research about the excuse. I'd be like, well, wait a minute. It seems like he could have just done this. Why has he already stopped trying? And I was like, son of a bitch, there are no good guys in this conversation. And it's a matter of waking up the greater population to that. I said it, if it wasn't in a short, it might have been on Friday's show. But like, do I believe that we are headed towards authoritarianism and overreach by a government? Yes. If I asked MAGA, do you believe that we are headed towards a communist state? They would tell you yes. And I think it's finding the reality that while I do believe that, based on the mass Virgin Army, what we saw happen in Maine, Minneapolis, Houston, everywhere, I do believe it. But I also try and remain sympathetic to the fact that there's an entire half of the third of the population that thinks the exact opposite is happening. I'll look into it, Wisco Girl. Thank you for the suggestion. Saying Grace Abbott's is also have her if you have her personal contact, it makes it a lot easier. Most of the people you see on this show reach out to me because as a one-man operation, I really don't have a guest booker or anything like that. And just trying to get everything set up on the back end is very time consuming. Like I'm literally leaving after the show wraps up. I'm going to a brunch meet and greet with another candidate. I have to do my office hours podcast for Substack at 1. I got Ben After Dark. I'm doing a hit on the Chicago station Wednesday. I'm going to a flock meeting. Plus, I have to prep and do 2 shows a day. So it really is a grind. So I'm not ignoring candidates, but I will say if you guys know people that want to be on Outside the Box, have them reach out to me right now. I will eventually get to the point where I am reaching out to them, but it would make it a lot easier on my end if they reached out to me at first. But so in any event, and I saw Hayes asking, I'm not going to double back on it, but I don't think Sarah Rodriguez should drop out of the governor's race. And I think anybody saying that Sarah Rodriguez should jump out of the governor's race is saying so to try and gain on their own front, whether that be a Democratic challenger or Tom Tiffany. I don't think anybody who doesn't have a dog in the fight watching that scandal break out for Sarah Rodriguez is calling for her to drop out. But that's at least my take on the matter. If any of you missed any of the first hour, all of my shows are available on my YouTube page as well as the Minocqua Brewing Time Substack. And just from a little bit of a personal standpoint, I did tell my former radio station that I was going to have more subscribers than them in 1 month on the Tube of You. So I'm about 85 away from doing so. So any of you listening, I have 8 days to get 85 subscribers. So tell your friends. I need to get to 732, and then we're going to keep growing from there. But I really want to focus on a push on the Tube of You for the next week, just so I can, you know? So tell your friends. And then if you miss any of the shows, you can go under my lives tab on the Ben Cominos page, and all the shows are right there. So it's free and let you know when it goes up. No, Aaron, I'm going to do it legitimately. She's telling me to rig the system. As Kendrick Lamar said, they tried to rig the game, but you can't fake influence. So I'm just going to do this the organic way. We're going to make it happen. But thank you all for being here. Thank you for the sub, Other Side 3000. Thank you very much for being here. And yeah, everybody should follow Other Side's mode there. Will you be interviewing candidates outside the Fox Valley? Interesting you bring that up, Old Lib. I was just talking about that with one of my shadow producers. Um, I think my reach in Northeast Wisconsin might actually be stronger now than it was when I was on the radio, but I think I've lost a lot of that national appeal. So I'm going to start branching out to people. I still want to keep a half hour always hyper local to Wisconsin, and then the other hour and a half. If there's a big Wisconsin story, I'll obviously go longer. But I think I'm going to start hammering stories all around the nation pretty soon here. Um, just to see if we can expand that reach a little bit and find some new people. You have us listed on channels. Thank you so much, Susan. I appreciate the help. I appreciate all of the help and everybody who's pushing the channel out there on their own time. It is absolutely appreciated. And of course, to all my Facebook peeps as well that I don't do a good enough job of staying up to date with, but I appreciate that all of you guys hang out here as well. Let's see here before I move on. Even the reflecting pool being drained again and being fixed by the same company that effed it up in the first place is a bigger scandal than this. That's what Dee said in regards to the Sarah Rodriguez scandal, and I'd have to agree. And Georgia Belling, who's a friend of mine through the Minocqua Brewing Substack, just enjoyed that interview very much, which was awesome. Um, but so what's Violet say? In a world that suppresses content, sometimes it's okay to bend the rules. I feel that. I feel that. But over here like Captain America. I have the Captain America shirt. I'm not wearing it, although my shirt is American as fuck right now. But although Folds of Honor is kind of right wing coded, but their agenda is awesome. If you guys aren't familiar with it, they provide scholarships to people that lost a parent serving in the armed forces. Um, I think that's an incredibly noble cause, and I was partnered with them back in Pittsburgh. But there's a bit of a right wing coding to everything that they do, which I'm just like, hmm. But in any event, so but I just got a funny text from a friend. So in any event, I do want to pivot here though, um, into yet another travesty, uh, in Maine this time around that we don't have as much information about as we do in the other moments. But needless to say, I forgot my towel. I'm not going to get up to get it. It's right over there. I could go gadget arms it, but I have a feeling it would make much more of a mess than it would solve. But I don't have my fuck ice towel or my Batman blanket for that matter up today. Sometimes I forget to set that up. But Ice unalived yet another individual yesterday. It was actually happening during Outside the Box. And there's a lot of info that needs to, and I try my best because, like, again, as much as I think ICE is a group of unqualified mass virgins not in a position to be able to do the job, and that both Joe Biden and Obama deported more people at a faster rate with less wanton violence. Um, and I'd prefer ICE not exist. I also acknowledge that they do exist, and you can't be running around pulling firearms or something uh on people in a car. But as Jay highlights on my TikTok feed, it's a 26-year-old father with his 3-year-old daughter in the car. Based on what I know about ICE, based on the history of ICE and Ben Cominos, um, I have a feeling I know what happened. And, you know, it's becoming a cliche at this point, but it's fairly remarkable that MAGA in the same day can go from condemning anybody who had anything negative to say about Lindsey Graham's passing. For the record, I never said anything negative about it. All I ever did was highlight his platform, his policies, his war hawk nature, and expressed my opinions on the legacy that he left behind. But those same people that say you better say something nice about Lindsay are the same ones saying, well, you can't have an omelet without breaking a couple of eggs. Maybe if he didn't want to get unalived, maybe he should have been here legally. And again, I'm not even certain of his legal status or not. What did I say negative, dumpster fire? I didn't walk around calling him a Southern Belle. I didn't walk around intimating that well, I did one time intimate that he was closet gay, but that I was sad for that fact. You let me know what I actually said. I know you're a bit soft. You let me know. Um, Other side says I talked bad about him for everyone else that didn't. Not sorry, not sorry. I feel that. I have my own way of doing things. I don't condemn anybody about how they go about their business. He hasn't reached back out. Like I said, if you cancel within an hour, Alex Greenhair is asking if Alec LaFlavor got a chance to reschedule. If you cancel an hour before the show, it's on you to reach back out to me. I don't have time for that. So if he wants to schedule a different time, tell him to reach out to me. Um, I talked about him the way I talked about him when he was alive. That's the best way to describe it. That Violet, that's perfect. But um, then you see these people immediately condemn a man who was unalived by a government agency wearing masks and not being held to account. Within a week of that happening in Texas, in the same year of it happening in Minnesota, all of these people labeled as domestic T words, all of these people being accused of putting ICE agents in danger, and all of these people being vindicated almost immediately, being shown to have not been putting anybody in danger. And there comes a time when I no longer give the benefit of the doubt. It's the Elon Musk ritual, right? Which, by the way, I don't know if you saw, but when Argentina, quick tangent, when Argentina elected Javier Milei, who's like a diehard libertarian, cut all the taxes on the rich, defund government, and let the free market thrive, Elon Musk posted underneath, "This is going to be it's going to be very beneficial for the people of Argentina." The Argentinian peso is valued at $0 as of yesterday. So Elon Musk says something, position yourself 100% diametrically opposed to that, and you're going to find out in the long term that you were ultimately right. Seems as though the exact same principle can be applied to ICE. When they tell you something was done in self defense, I can almost guarantee you that it was not. And then inevitably, there actually will be one example of self defense. And you can bet your asses MAGA's going to run that up the flagpole as if that's the only example that ever mattered. And all of these other ones are like, well, yeah, sometimes shit happens. Maybe he kind of looks like he was in a gang. You're telling me he had a tattoo? Mm, mm. You know who else had tattoos? The Yahtzees. So anyway, be nice to poor little dumpster fire in the TikTok chat. He doesn't know any better. So anyway, in Maine, we have another person being unalived in front of their 3-year-old daughter. Can she process what she saw? I don't know. Probably. And similarly to the shooting to the pew-pewing in Texas, it really isn't getting the same kind of coverage. And like, that's pretty hard to ignore. Okay, keep being mean. That's fine. It's pretty hard to ignore that it doesn't get the same kind of coverage as when white people get unalived by the mass Virgin Army. And that sticks out to me. Right now, I have which one is it? I think it's MS Now on, just in case anything breaks. And it has been wall to wall coverage. 2 SCOTUS justices testify before Congress. Wall to wall. We've got a government agency unaliving people. Gamer says, hint, hint, they're not white. That's kind of what I'm implying. Like, it's pretty difficult to avoid anything else. You know, there was a clip that went viral, and once you see it, it's kind of hard to unsee it. Of Donald Trump going on Jake Tapper's morning show. I didn't see it live, but I've seen the clip. And he went on there to talk about Lindsey Graham. And while he was talking about Lindsey Graham, Jake Tapper pivoted and then he brings up the Strait of Hormuz and says, "So is that closed again? Because I thought you said it was reopened." And Trump goes, "I don't know. I thought it was reopened. Don't ask me about that. That's not what I'm here to talk about." And Jake Tapper apologized and went back to talking about Lindsey Graham. There's an unspoken reality that the media has to deal with. And that is that in order to have the mainline guests, you have to toe the line. If you want access, you have to do your show a certain way. It's why I predicated this show. And I've had a bunch of you reach out to me and say it's great that I'm putting politicians on, but they actually like the show when it's just me giving my take on the politics of the day. And right on. That's my favorite kind of media to do too. But I enjoy the act of giving people a platform that I think otherwise really don't get one. If I wanted the mainline guests outside of the two-party system, Francesca Hong would come on this show even though I'm no longer on the radio, and I know that with every fiber of my being. Kelda Royce came on this show even though I'm not on the radio. But if you are an establishment type, if you are not campaigning but you have to actually stand up for your policy, unless you're going to play ball, you're not going to get access. And that was very much exemplified by Jake Tapper's reaction to Donald Trump when he did the accidental thing of called journalism, where you're like, hey, the government's telling us that the Strait of Hormuz is open, and yet here we are looking at it, and it seems as though it's closed again. No, 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 don't ask me about that. That's not why I'm here. All right, interview's over. Bop, we're moving on. Um, at least that's how I'd handle it because I don't care. And I think the reason I bring that up, just so it doesn't seem like a random tangent, is I think you're seeing a similar thing happening. If ICE, the mass virgins, unalive a white person, the media is allowed to cover it because then you can stoke racial tensions. If they unalive a Hispanic individual, well, now it no longer fits their narrative. That's just business, and we don't want to get on Donald Trump's bad side. KG says, is access to being constantly insulted and gaslit really worth that much? Unfortunately, KG, and this is real, I would argue outside the box got worse when Donald Trump became president. Not statistically, not in terms of downloads or ratings. Downloads and ratings actually doubled the day Donald Trump became president. My downloads doubled. But instead of doing shows about the shortcomings of politics, about pharmaceutical benefits managers, about vertical integration in the healthcare industry and why that's a bad thing and what we can do as citizens to prevent that from happening, hedge funds buying up and consolidating all these different industries. Instead of doing those kind of shows, I was like, wait a minute, did Elon Musk just do a Yahtzee salute? What the fuck are we doing here? And the show got dumber and more visceral, and people liked it more. You probably found me, Kay, in my Trump era as opposed to my Biden era, because that's when most people found me. And they're like, oh, this guy's good. And they're in for such a rude awakening the second Democrats are in power. They're going to be like, wait a minute. What is he doing? He's going to get Republicans elected in the next election if he doesn't shut the hell up about this. And I'm not going to shut the hell up about it. Yes, he goes on there and insults people and calls names. And is it really worth that much? In the media world where everybody does things for financial reasons? Yes. Yes, it is. Um, Wait, what's going on here? You girls starting a gang? Okay, good stuff. Well, Violet says she's here for the laid off Ben era. Yeah. Yeah, maybe people will be. Once we really get our feet under us, I think people are going to be very into it. But I appreciate the support as I always do, Violet. Um Fenway says, I think it's going to get worse. They're going after journalists and their sources. Well, I'm sure some of you are familiar. Even a blind squirrel finds a nut. And the failing New York Times was reporting on Trump switching from the Qatari plane to the Air Force One plane. Again, a story I couldn't possibly give a shit less about. And uh, said that he did so because he was afraid of threats and things that were going on there. Um, and KG, if you found me in the summer of 24, then I know I've got you for life because I was going so hard on Kamala Harris. That was a great time to find me. So I appreciate you for that. But the four failing New York Times journalists went to were accosted by federal agents and essentially were subpoenaed and told, give us your um sources, which is a big no-no in media. And I always used to be very critical of the unnamed source until I started getting information from people and they would say, you can say that, but don't say it's from me. And I was like, okay, so do I do the thing I've always said I hated, or am I coming to grips with exactly why this has to happen in this industry in the first place? Um, and it's the latter. The answer is the latter. Um, but there is an absolute affront to journalism right now that is very difficult to ignore. And I think it's being reflected in these ICE shootings, pew pewings. I think it is being highlighted in the way that the president is interviewed on the liberal media. And I think it goes to the stories that we're talking about there about pro-Palestinian journalists being censored, about the switching from the Qatari plane to the Air Force plane, and so many others. Susan says, I love the New York Times. Do I want to go on this tangent? Let me read the other comments, and then I'm probably tangenting. Unfortunately, the ICE unaliving in Houston does not yet have the clear video evidence that the Good and Pretty unalivings did. Absolutely, I agree with you, but it's kind of the boy who cried wolf. So that, like, once you've lied enough times, you need to prove your innocence to me as an ICE agent rather than the other way around. And if you have an issue with that, put a goddamn body camera on and put it to bed. Otherwise, shut up about it. I'm assuming the victim is right. Every time. They can either put the cameras on or they can shut up about it. Waka waka MAGA. Um, Jim says, I wonder where all of the don't tread on me Second Amendment types have gone. Well, they're making sure we don't have to put masks on in the pandemic again. They're focusing on the real issues that we're facing. Justin says, we're still here. The problem is no one wants to unite and to do a peaceful march. Also, the 2A are right wing, so they support this crap. Exactly. Exactly. So, Susan, now I'm going to do this for your benefit. I am not saying that the New York Times is fake news. Here's what I am saying. My come to Jesus moment on the New York Times was before I was even on the air full time. And in the same publication of the NYT, um, they highlighted the Build Back Better program, which was, Biden's tentpole institution. $220 billion a year is what Build Back Better would cost us. $220 billion. The New York Times reports $2.2 trillion worth of spending over the next decade based on Joe Biden's outlandish proposal. Like, I'm paraphrasing what came after it, but they put the decade-long price tag of Build Back Better, which was social programs and infrastructure development and green initiatives and all these job-creating endeavors, all of these fantastic programs that I think should have probably been championed across the aisle. In the same publication, They covered the increase that Joe Biden was allowing for the Defense Department. And in that article, I think it was like a $15 billion increase or something like that. And it was like $15 billion increase to $768 billion a year for the Defense Department. Okay. Okay. So let me get this straight. When it goes to funneling money into a department that can't pass an audit, we give the 1 year budget, even though we know damn well that next year that budget is going to increase even further. But when a social program package is passed, well, now we're going to give the 10-year scope. Why isn't the defense budget viewed through the lens of $7.68 trillion investment over the course of the next 10 years into the Defense Department, despite the fact, if I remember correctly, the war with Ukraine hadn't started yet and we had pulled out of Afghanistan. So we weren't even in a war, and they wanted a $15 billion increase. In the New York Times, who's never met a war they didn't like, they pushed us into the war on terror. They pushed us into the war in Iran as we speak right now. They always advocate for the Defense Department. But then when Joe Biden does Build Back Better, how can we present this in a way that will piss off every single Republican and a large percentage of moderates? I know. Let's put it over a 10-year span so that it looks like it's trillions of dollars. That's my issue with the New York Times. I'm going to have to check out Ground News. I'm not familiar with them, but I'd love to look into them. I like that idea. Seems like a lot of you are on board with that. Yeah, old Lib thinks we're getting desensitized to ice pew pewings, and we might be. I'm not. I'm not, but I was even talking with one of my shadow producers this morning, and the two episodes that I talked about ice in the title, um it does way worse than any of the other episodes I've done. And I'm not going to stop, and I'm not claiming shadow banned. I think people aren't as interested. Yeah, there we go, Susan. Now you get it. I think people aren't as interested as they should be. Seems like a lot of people on my TikTok chat are also big into ground news. Okay, I'll definitely look into it. All right, cool. I appreciate that, Jaro. I will definitely look into it. Let me check my Facebook messages or Book of Faces messages real quick. ICE is funded up the wazoo for the next 3 years, and somehow they can't manage to equip the mass Virgin Army with body cams. Yeah, right. I feel that. I feel that, D. It's pretty hard to avoid. Um, it's just so disheartening. Like, they tell you in order to do this job, you have to um separate yourself from the news. And to a certain extent, I could slowly feel that happening, and I push back against that feeling, right? Um, Here's a human moment for you. I used to be the news editor at KDKA Radio. So I would work from 6 to 2 in the morning. And when I would get there, I essentially was in charge of taking the 30 biggest stories of the day. Obviously, Pittsburgh being a bigger market than the Fox Valley, there was a lot more in the world of violence and news going on a daily basis. And I'd boil it down to 5 or 6 stories. I'd write up the scripts and I'd give it to the news anchor, and he would give it the final okay that he liked the way that everything was portrayed, make any changes that he needed to do, so on and so forth. On the same day, not one but two 3-year-olds both lost their lives to random violence, pew pewings across the city. Obviously, they weren't the target; they were unintended I don't want to use the word collateral, but I'm struggling to think of a second word. Um, I remember he walked in and I had written up all of the stories and he was getting ready to go. And in the most monotone voice possible, I said, all right, so we have two 3 year olds that ended up getting shot yesterday. But I think we should leave this one out of the newscast for now because this other one stands out in a way that I think the listeners are going to resonate with. And when I heard myself say those words, like without even thinking about it, just being in show mode, in go mode. And this is what you do. You're the news editor, but that's not who I am as a person. And when I heard those words come out of my mouth, I put the notepad down in front of the news anchor. I said, I need to take a day off. And I took a day off and I went home just at the beginning of my shift. And I just reflected on the path that I was on, and I decided right then that anytime I ever recognize myself uh, falling down that path again, that I would immediately acknowledge that I was doing it and do what I needed to do to correct that. And I think I've done a good job of sticking to that ever since, and I can kind of see it happening around the nation with the ICE stuff right now. And again, mark my words, if one of you were unalived by one of these masked virgins, they would the news would cover it harder than it has covered these two most recent stories. And I find that to be disgusting. And whether it's desensitization, whether it doesn't get the same ratings that other stories do, whether they're worried about being viewed as radical left for being against masked federal agents unaliving Americans in the middle of the street, whatever the situation may be, it clearly isn't getting covered to the same extent. Like there's no wiggle room around that. So Susan says even my cat has a body camera. Wait, Justin, why are you saying they'd paint you as Trump for what? John, out of curiosity, how does the book Talking to Strangers address violence against people? Oh, Trump paid E. Jean Carroll. Who knew you had to do what fucking juries and judges told you to do? Not me. I thought you could just do what you want. I'm sure all of us would get away with it for exactly as long. Um, By the way, speaking of that, John Bolton was doing an interview this morning talking about why it was important for us to keep the pressure up on Iran. That Mother Hubbard was caught with classified documents in his possession like not very long ago and paid a $2 million fine. And now he's doing hits on TV again about the importance of our foreign policy. Everyone's acting like nothing happened. Remember when, like, for 4 years, that was the worst thing we could possibly imagine? Just important things to cling to when the media is trying to gin up your outrage. Why do you only show me when ICE is unaliving whites? Why do unclassified or why do classified documents being in Trump's place matter, but when they're in Pence, Biden, or John Bolton's place, it's just like, well, shit happens. You know how many forms they have to go through every day? They gave them back as soon as we asked. Aaron has to leave to do homework. Fucking lame. Um. Uh. Keto fan. I've been calling you Quito the whole time, and you haven't corrected me once. I know it's pronounced keto. I just realized that. God, I'm an American. All right. Keto fan says, as an immigrant, over I'm over it all, honestly. There's nothing, oops, skipped up. There's nothing I can do about any of it as much as I want to fight it, and I don't think it's worth me fighting the system anymore. Well, no, I don't buy that for a second. And I get here's what I will say to you. You should be done fighting it alone, yes. But be done fighting the system entirely? No, that's exactly what the system wants. The system wants you checked out, making money and not caring about politics. My regulars on TikTok have been joking with me because I'm switching from landlord Ben to hedge fund Ben. I'm dropping my duplex in the near future. I reached out to my tenants to give them the heads up, and I'm going to be investing that into a couple of different funds that slowly gain interest over the year, and I'm going to make a pretty penny on it. And the system is designed for me to tell you guys to be Dave Ramsey, tell you, well, just be debt free and you won't worry about any of this stuff anymore. And I instinctively push back against that every day because I believe the system is designed for you to, when you beat it, to when you end up on the other side of it, to become a part of it and let other people know they can become a big enough part of it too, as long as you just keep your nose to the grindstone. And I can't tell you how to live your life, Keto, and I'm sure it's exhausting. Like, this is coming from an experience of privilege. I can turn off my activism when I want to, right? If I want to just be a normal dude who passes as white for a couple weeks, I can do that and not have to worry about any of this. And I can say, having reflected on Outside the Box Radio Edition, I don't think I talked about ice nearly enough and did a disservice to the people listening to me because I'm in a constant state of reflecting on myself, figuring out how I can improve and what I can do better, both professionally and as a person. And I recognize that for you, the struggle has been your entire life. It will be your entire life. And to hear a guy sitting in front of a microphone telling you like, "Oh, you can't give up right now." Like, from a non-aware, self-aware perspective, I can get why that's frustrating. I hope you recognize that I'm cognizant of that when I tell you this. But the system is designed for you to feel like you can't beat it. And I'm here to tell you that as long as enough of us continue doing what we're doing, you can. It might sound cliche. I don't think she's going to solve all the answers, but if progressives start winning governor's races in Michigan and Wisconsin, that signals to me that the racism stuff is dying, the immigrant stuff is dying, and what is thriving is economic populism, is an economics that works for all of us, that doesn't exclude any populations of people, that pays women and minorities at the same rate as it pays the dudes that are in the workforce. It's achievable, and more people are buying into it. That's at least my perception. Wait, Brian, are you still in the chat? Here's the best part, Brian, is that you're dealing with a white guy right now. I'm not going to get hit with a capital gains tax because I learned the laws and I understand what I needed to do. Paying zero, not even illegal. I'm paying zero in capital gains tax. Welcome to America. Here's what's crazy though. I'll Dave Ramsey you guys for a moment. I have content, but this actually feels more like outside the box that I'm talking about shit that I had no intention of talking about. Um, as Kristen highlights, by the way, before I do that, caller Ben says he's interested in voting for Francesca Hong. If he's saying that, there's a lot more of them out there. Just an FYI. And Kristen, I was holding it up before. Go look how Bernie performed against Hillary Clinton in 2016. Tell me Wisconsin's not ready for a progressive. But so to Brian's point, because I really want to rub it in his face right now, my duplex, I owner occupied for a decade. Um, in Pennsylvania, you have to live in a place for more than 2 years for it to be considered your primary residency, and you have to have moved out of there less than 5 years ago. On August 22nd, I will have moved out 4 years ago. So as long as you meet those two criteria, there is no capital gains tax on your house. Here's the crazy part. Those kind of loopholes are designed for people specifically in my position Tax loopholes designed to bolster the middle class and the working class while they are trying to build a life. You have never heard me say anything negative about those. It is the fact that you know damn well, as much as I do, that um, millionaires and billionaires are writing down the most ridiculous things as their primary residencies, finding ways to get away with it, and then not getting audited on the back end. I am comfortable telling you guys about exactly why I'm not paying and the specifics behind it, because I know, as Stevie highlights, it's the exact same rules in Wisconsin. I know I'm following the rules and I haven't made up a single thing that I am telling you. And you know what's crazy is he actually gave me a call last week, and it's a testament to the kind of person that he is. I was talking to Tim Roush on the phone, and I said, I actually feel terrible because I was on the fence, and this weekend I pulled the trigger. I was like, you know what? I'm selling. Um, and I was talking to Tim on Friday, and I said I feel terrible because I know whoever buys this property, whether it be a hedge fund or just a random dude who's investing in properties, is going to jack those rents up. I very famously didn't raise my rents the entire time my tenants lived there. Um, and I know they're going to jack the rates up on them, and I feel terrible about that. And Tim was talking to me on the phone, and he says, I knew as soon as I said pull the T in regards to selling my house that I was going to get restricted on TikTok, and it happened. As soon as I said it, I was like, that was a poor choice of words. But and he said, Ben, look at it this way. You've lived in the Fox Valley for 4 years. Your tenants have lived there for six, which we'd been talking about. And he says that's 6 years where they didn't have to worry about this rental situation that millions of Americans are struggling with every day. He said, you played your part and you'll figure out a new way to play your part, and you did what you could. And for the record, he is also a landlord and he also does not charge market value. So when we met, that's actually one of the first stories we told each other. And that was why I agreed to take him on as a sponsor on the radio show. But so I've been struggling with it quite a bit. But long and short of it is, um, tell that to your future homeless tenant, says Violet. Hey, weren't you trying to cancel me for being an owner, and now you're trying to cancel me for not being an owner? You know? Now she says, kidding. Too late. I'm enraged. Not pushing the rules at all, Brian. Quite literally following the rules. It's not like I own a building up here in Wisconsin. I'm renting. I don't have a second place to live. That still is my primary residence. Honestly, if I didn't have certain behind the scenes machinations going on, I probably would have been thinking about moving back to Pittsburgh. You know what I mean? Telling my tenant, hey, I'm going to need you to move out by the end of the year, and I'm going to move back in there so that I could go back to living rent free in my duplex like I was doing before I moved out here. It just so happens that am the best at this job. So I immediately got employed again. Well, not employed, but I'll be able to cover my expenses and then some for the foreseeable future um, going forward. Is my home address? I mean, not where my mail goes, but it's my primary residency. Yes. Thank you for the voting information there, Jar Manny. Like I said, and Brian, you should know this better than most people. I'm not against the working man taking advantage of the loopholes that are in place. It's when um the obvious villains of the story are taking advantage of it. I mean, hell, how many mega landlords and hedge funds get corporate subsidies to do the things that they are doing? I didn't even apply for unemployment. People were mocking me for that. They were like, a lot of your money's off the books right now. You probably could. I'm like, I don't need it. What's the difference? So, like, much to the chagrin, and Brian's not MAGA, so I'm not implying Brian's MAGA, but much to the chagrin of the Republicans that tend to think, like, oh, he doesn't understand. Like, no, I practice what I preach in every regard. I'm actually pretty consistent in that way. It's the kind of thing that would frustrate people so much they'd rather just take my voice off the airwaves because I'm too good at what I do rather than try and take me on academically. But again, hypothetical. I wouldn't possibly be referencing anything specific there. Yeah, Larry, I'm intending to stay in the area at least for the foreseeable future. I can't explain why yet, unfortunately. And like so many of you are private messaging me and they're like, Ben, tell us what you're doing. I'm playing this close to the chest. But there are a lot of good things happening, and I'm going to stay local at least for the next year, if not further. If for no other reason, if I can just be petty for a moment, and I think you guys will allow that, and I need to be careful about how I phrase this. I think I ran afoul of the good old boy network. Because again, I'm not, according to corporate reasons, I was let go for corporate restructuring. Here's what I do know: highest rated talk show in the market, 4 out of 5 books. I had 3 live reads attached to my show. I had a financial group that would do a paid interview twice a month on my show. I had a full spot load on the show. I had a great listening audience, and everybody in the building also enjoyed interacting with me as well. I think I had a lot of positives flowing in my direction, and this firing kind of came out of nowhere, and even almost a month later, really doesn't make that much sense. And I wonder what other powers were involved in the decision. And I believe the intention was for me to take my ball and go home. And so, if for no other reason other than to make sure that I fuck over the right wing, I'm going to stick around here for the foreseeable future just to make sure that the stuff that I was talking about makes sense. The reality is, I have always identified as a leftist, and yet I have a way of talking politics that had most people convinced that I was a moderate, that I was a centrist. Because when you talk to somebody who's educated and can back up left wing policies with facts and examples rather than emotion and yelling, it's pretty difficult to push back against. And both Democrats and Republicans alike would rather have surface level arguments, not to say these are issues that don't matter, but about abortion access and about equal rights. I do a show that says, yeah, if you aren't in favor of that, that's bare minimum for entry as far as I'm concerned. I am not even entertaining a candidate who's like, hey, I want to do Medicare for all, but I am just not too big on the Asians. Like, that's not a conversation that I'm willing to have. Um, and the both of the sides of the uniparty would rather that's where the conversations end up. And so when you take a voice like mine off the air, I think it's with the intention of resetting the narrative. Eventually, enough people will forget that I was ever on HBY. But if I have it my way, and don't get me wrong, I can see myself doing this show from a condo near a beach somewhere in the future. That sounds like a nice way to ride out the rest of this existence. But for the foreseeable future, I was never blowing smoke up your asses when I said I am so happy that I ended up doing radio in Wisconsin. Not to say I wouldn't have liked to do it in Pittsburgh, but when I was applying for jobs, I was offered 5 jobs out of 8 interviews because I'm really good. And I was only considering 2 of them. One was here and one was in Washington State. And I think about how boring it would be to be in a hyper democratic, vote blue no matter who. Like, yes, my voice would still stick out as a progressive versus a Democrat, so I would have found a niche there. But Wisconsin is such an interesting dynamic in terms of electorate, in terms of how knowledgeable so many average people are about the political scene. Um, it's pretty awesome. And I'm so happy that I got to do it here. And yeah, if I moved home, I could have done politics in Pennsylvania. And I'm intending to start reaching out to Pennsylvania representatives. I'm bringing my PA audience into this group. I'm going to start bringing politicians on from around the country. We're going to grow this audience, but I'm still always going to have my finger on the pulse. Even if I were to move, I would still have my finger on the pulse of what's going on in Wisconsin because I find it to be an incredibly fascinating state politically. And so I say all of that to say that this show practices what it preaches. Brian saying he likes me other than when I dunk on boomers. I can't help it. Just stop deserving it, and I promise I'll stop. Justin says, you're quite busy tomorrow. I'm feeling better 90%. Else we plan next week. Do you start working on Thursday? Otherwise, we probably will. I'm assuming you're going to go. Unless you want to do a later night, Justin, I'll text you later. But like, I don't know if you're going to the Appleton thing tomorrow, but I'll be there. Dragonfly says she's so happy I didn't take my ball and go home. Me too. Larry says Wisconsin has friendlier people, though they must. Yeah, they do. Hal says they did the same thing to the first guy, Bill Sebastian, who had your time slot. Unfortunately, he did disappear because no alternative back then. No, I get that. And I'll be real. I got lucky. Or, do you create your own luck? I'll let you guys decide. But I got lucky. Like, I was literally driving home and different internet operations were calling and texting me, being like, we'd love to have you on. And cool, great. And we'll go from there. We got a couple sponsors lined up, which I can't talk about yet. I'm telling you, September 1, like this, I'm still going to have a home studio for Ben After Dark that's kind of set up a little less professionally, but wait till you see what I'm putting together for outside the box. Keto fans asking if I can bring his country's president onto the show and ask him what the fuck he thinks he's doing. I can ask. I don't know. I don't know if he'd say yes to that, but I can definitely ask. This Scotty is glad you are here. I appreciate that, Fenway. I'm glad I stayed too. I might even get a calendar. You watch your mouth, Carla. Have I thought about starting my own radio station a little bit? I looked into buying like a physical radio station, and you'd be surprised how expensive they still are. I could buy a really small one with the proceeds from the duplex. Um, but that's a risk that I don't know. Get donors. Yeah, maybe. I mean, who knows? I want to see where this is going and then seeing if I can't just get syndicated on radio stations, which means I'd have to stop cussing. So we better get it in now. Fuck. But that's kind of my intention right now is build this base, show that it's a model, show that it's sellable, and then propose it to other radio stations, with the ideal station being sell the show to a certain radio station that I really want to make sure regrets their decision just every goddamn day. Sharon says, did the radio station that shall not be named make you sign a non-compete clause? No, they didn't. No, they didn't, which was all right by them. And again, like it's a very strange sensation. Like, and we'll probably end up just wrapping up this show with me talking about my personal life, but who cares? Um, when I left Pittsburgh, like I do not like KDKA. If they offered me to come back and do a show, I'd be happy to, but best believe they're going to pay me. They're going to pay me well. I know what they were paying the other hosts there, and you best believe I'd be getting paid more than them because my ratings are better. But like when I left here, I would always, if you're a regular listener to the show, you heard me be like, oh yeah, back at the trash ass station that I used to work for. And then I just keep talking. There will come a time, not any time in the near future, where I stop calling it that shitty little radio station and start using the call letters again because I'm like Magneto at the end of First Class. Like I'm thinking about all the negative things in my life to try and like move the tectonic plates, but what I actually need to focus on is all the good things in order to do it. If you've seen the X-Men movies, you know what I'm talking about. And There were a lot of good memories there, and they did give me my start. The way things ended, yeah, that's a bad beat. And I think they ended that way because I'm too effective, because I would argue most people would struggle to find a second reason. Um, and that's frustrating. And I'm not necessarily angry about it as much as I am just kind of disappointed at this point. Um, but there are some positives. The lack of a non-compete, and I'll never sign a non-compete because of that. The fact that I already had a small base of people on TikTok that are willing to help me out. The only reason that happened is because they let me stream my show on TikTok, despite the fact that in theory, would have eventually cannibalized their own audience. There were good things that happened there. Piece of shit thing to do at the end of June. Um, but such is business. I learned a lesson, and they're going to learn that it's a lot more fun to play with me than it is to play against me. They're going to learn that very soon. Um, but it won't ever be personal. Like the Undertaker used to say, it's just business. Wisco Girl says, we have plenty of beaches here. Yeah, but it's not the same. You have the kind of beaches that when you go in the water, you have to go like this. You know what I mean? And you're walking into the water. For anybody that goes to the beach, and for some reason there's some psychological thing where you don't put your hands in the water. And for some reason that makes you think you're warmer. That's not, as somebody who lived in Pittsburgh and would go to Ocean City, Maryland every summer, that was the kind of beach that we would go to, and you'd be in the water, you'd be like, oh my God, it's too cold in this water. That's the kind of beaches you have in Wisconsin. It's not the kind of beaches I'm talking about. Or if it is going to be that cold, then the waves got to put you on your ass, because I do like riding waves. So, like, you got to meet me somewhere in there. Betsy, is that you, Betsy, or is that a different Betsy? Take it to the next level and get a sponsor to pay for a producer for you, Ben. Think of what you could do if you didn't have to deal with all the moving pieces. Oh, absolutely. And I have a sponsor who I'm actually calling right after I get off the air today, and we're going to set up an appointment later in the week to go and talk business. All right, good. I'm glad you found it. I'm assuming you've already clicked that subscribe button, because if you haven't, we're going to have words. And then tell like 10 other people. I've been saying I got to get that number. I need like 85 more subscribers before July 22nd for an insult that I made when I got laid off to come to fruition. And I really want to make that happen. So we need to find 85 people in the next 8 days to subscribe to my Ben Cominos page, specifically on the tube of you. Everything else, yes, do that specifically on the tube of you. I need you guys to hop on there. Well, it's funny, Keto, like you're going to open a whole can of worms there, but that's basically what I'm running into. Because Odyssey and iHeart own all the radio stations by and large. And like what's funny is if you check out, and like I haven't even, you want to know what's crazy? Things have been going so well for me post radio that I haven't even updated my resume. Because I'm like, I'm actually going to just do this for a little bit. Seems like I'm going to do more than make ends meet. And I'm going to ride this out for a little bit. But go and look at an application to go do radio for an iHeart station, talk radio specifically. Doesn't matter what city you pick, every single application. iHeartMedia is looking for a conservative radio host with a proven track record of getting results. It's like, well, I have half of that. Are you interested in half of that? Not the conservative part, the other half? But so you're not that far off. I see people saying I should use bots. No, I'm going to beat them on the up and up. No, I'm going to beat that ass. I'm going to beat that ass playing by the rules, because I always play by the rules. I never had to screw anybody over or cheat to do what I'm doing. I fucking did everything the way people tell me to do it. And god damn it, I'm going to keep doing it that way. But yeah, so that was a bit of a tangent for the last half hour of this show. That technically is my bad, but most of you stuck around for it. So really, whose bad is it now, you know? Um, I just realized I still have my studios account. Here's one more. All right, all right. I'll take that. I'll take that. Um, Carla, by the way, is the background on my TikToks these days. But so I appreciate all the support, guys, and you guys have made this much easier. Like I said, I think you all know I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about it. You want to know what's funny? You know, whatever. Who cares? I don't actually have an out time. I'll just talk until I don't want to talk anymore. When I first moved out here, I was so mad at Pittsburgh. The program director told the general manager in a three-way meeting, they said, is Ben good enough to fill in 12 to 3? And the program director said, no, not even close. And within 2 days of me doing shows in the Fox Valley, I was getting emails from people saying, I thought you were a nationally syndicated host with how well you were delivering things. And it turns out you're here in the Fox Valley. You're fantastic. I don't know where we found you. And while that's flattering, it actually made me so mad that my program director, who used to be the program director for Rudy Giuliani's radio station, so you can imagine what kind of guy he was, it made me so mad that he would represent my abilities that way, that for the first year and a half that I was in the Fox Valley, for 20 minutes a morning, I would pace back and forth in my living room, practicing my talking points for the show and getting angrier and angrier. And you guys would say, man, you're so passionate when you talk. I don't know where that comes from. It came from wanting to prove that guy wrong every single day and being mad that he decided to mess with me. And then after that, I got a little complacent. And I have to say that the last 3 weeks, I feel like my old self again. I feel like this is old school, outside the box, that means business, that is cracking down on the politicians that I think are screwing us over. And while I don't harbor the same level of animosity towards the more recent station here now, they definitely lit that fire. And I hope it kind of carries. And, for those of you that think it's still missing something, please remember I'm doing this show still on my couch with a couple of Marvel posters behind me. Just you wait. Just you wait for what's around the bend and where this show is going to end up going. Because I promise I am motivated. You guys help keep me there. And there's a group of people that I consider my friends that I don't know why they stand by me every single day, but they do. And it helps keeping me going as well. So I I'm ready to whoop some ass. We got a show tomorrow. Do I have a guest? Why do I feel like these are those moments where I wish I had a calendar? I have the worst kind of feeling that I have a guest tomorrow and I don't remember. We'll find out, won't we? Um, but I got to get out of here. We've got Ben After Dark later tonight. If you subscribe, if you are a paid subscriber to the Minocqua Brewing Substack, I will be doing an office hours from 1 to 1:30 today. Which I do every Tuesday from 1 to 1:30. So go ahead and check that out as well if you feel so inclined. And otherwise, Ben After Dark, 7 to 8:30. Just going to be continuing to dive into the stories in a more lighthearted fashion. And then we've got another show tomorrow, 9 to 11 Central Time, Violet. You're welcome. Every single weekday. So we'll catch you then. Thank you for listening, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.